So this video is a bit different. I wanted to share some personal updates and how I've been sort of dealing with some recent challenges this year. And, I try my best to be as transparent as I can um, when I'm experiencing certain things. Because I feel like if I'm experiencing it, then possibly other people might be experiencing it. So it's good to share your story because you might, you know, help somebody else. If you're new here to my channel, welcome. My name is Francis. I'm a clinical therapist and a plant medicine integration coach. And this channel is really about empowering you to transcend fear so you can find a profound sense of belonging and purpose on your unique path to fulfillment. And so to overcome your fears, it's important to understand where the resistance is coming from and why it exists. Sometimes we experience resistance when it's time for us to do certain things, when it's time for us to make a decision, when it's time for us to anything. That resistance that you feel, usually it's fear. We call it all types of things, but at the end of the day, it's just fear, all of it. So welcome. Thanks for joining me. And so earlier this year, I'm holding my mic because this, yeah, I'm holding my mic just because it's easier. So earlier this year, so just so you know, I'm on Instagram and YouTube. But earlier this year, I felt overwhelmed. And I felt overwhelmed because there was this constant pressure, or at least a pressure I put on myself, right? Sometimes we make up these things in our minds. But the constant pressure to create content and maintain this sort of strong online presence while also, supporting my clients and living, having a personal life. And I felt overwhelmed and drained as if I had nothing more to give. And so this pressure was literally depleting my creativity and my energy levels. So this whole conversation is going to be sort of like how I've navigated some of these pressures and burnout. And so if you're experiencing burnout, this video is for you. And if you're experiencing creativity blocks, you might get some things from this as well. But I've been creating videos for a few years now. If you go on my channel, I have over 300 videos. I'm like, when did that happen? But anyway, I do. And I started to feel like I was running out of things to say, right? I was experiencing a block and it felt familiar. And I was like, where do I know this feeling from? Because I have experienced burnout before. And so I needed to take a step back and reflect. Offline, like I said, I had clients to support. In my personal life, I had a lot of stuff going on. In my relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships, I'm human, stuff happens. And I felt like that creativity that I usually rely on also helps me just to navigate life. Like when we have space for creativity, we have space to problem solve, to think clearly. But when it's impacted, it's clouded. Okay. And so I felt like a stuffed animal just bursting from the seams. I just couldn't think clearly. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Amy says, just checking the messages in the chat, says an on-time message indeed. And so my ability to create replenishes me. And I believe we're all creative and we're all creators. A lot of people are like, I'm not creative. Yes, you are. You are a creative because creativity does not mean like art or drawing or any of those things. Creativity just means tapping into your own internal resources and finding what lights you up. And so as a kid, creativity replenished me, right? I used to use it as a way to cope with a lot of challenging things in my life, drawing, writing, reading, all those things. And so I realized I could not sacrifice my creativity just for an online presence as much as I love y'all. I had to find something. And so, but in 2013, some of you don't know my burnout story. I'm not going to go too much into it because I've done videos about it before. And if you're on my newsletter, I've talked about it. I experienced a catastrophic burnout. It was the kind of burnout that made you either pack your bags and run away or end up in a hospital. And so in 2016, I packed my bags and I ran off to Thailand. I bought a one-way ticket and I was out of here. Uh, but I brought all my baggage with me. But thankfully, this time around, I recognized it. I recognized it in time for me to shift before like that breaking point. That breaking point sometimes has us shutting down, shutting everybody out, making some really rash decisions. Not rash as in bad, but just like not thinking from a clear and grounded state. Sometimes we'll make a decision because of how emotional we feel at the time. And then we go back and we're like, huh, I probably shouldn't have done that. I could have thought a bit more about that. And so, usually, when you have time to just sit and reflect before you make such rash decisions, that's really a sign that you've overcome a challenge. And that's when you start just making different choices than what you normally would make. Like the old Francis, if I had burnt out, I'm out, right? Shut down, I'm out of here, I'm not taking it, I'm not dealing with it. And that doesn't necessarily mean you deal with it. That just means you take it with you wherever you go, it transforms into different ways. And so when you begin to make a different choice, especially when something starts to feel a bit familiar, this is how you break free from old patterns and habits. And it might feel very natural to revert back to familiar behaviors, but if we consciously choose to change negative patterns, we can also create positive ones, right? We get really caught up with all the negative stuff that's happening, but we don't realize as much as we have the capacity for negativity, we also have the capacity for positivity. And so this leads me to say that it can be difficult to believe that positive change is possible, especially when we've created so much negativity in our lives, right? But remember, our ability to create, again, negative experiences also means we have the power, the capacity to create positive ones. It's like two sides of the same coin. And as an empath, I try not to get too attached to labels, but, I feel things. And so I'm prone to burnout. So if you're an empath, if you're somebody who feels all the feels, burnout will happen quite easily. And a lot of things will make you feel like you're suffocating, you feel like you're being engulfed, that sort of thing. And because I'm prone to burnout, I feel like I should know better. But anyway, and I was talking to my intuitive guide. She explained that if I don't prioritize self-care and create mental space, I won't be able to fully connect with my heart. And that's been an ongoing thing for me, an ongoing theme, especially when I've had these in-depth conversations with my partner. I even saw a palm reader right now. I'm in Bali. Me and my partner went to go see a palm reader, and even he caught it. I didn't say anything to this guy. He was actually really good, and he emphasized the importance of intentional energy management. And again, some of you who watch my channel or who follow me are empaths. Intentional energy management is critical just to our overall health. I mean, frankly, even if you're not an empath, you know, we all need to manage our energy levels and create more boundaries with ourselves, right? It starts with ourselves and then it goes external. And again, I've had really in-depth conversations with my partner about this. And the question always came up is like, do you have the capacity? And I was like, do I have the capacity? And I always think I do have the capacity, right? And you might relate to this, some of you. I discovered that my life experiences had given me a remarkable capacity for handling challenges. But they are also a double-edged sword. Growing up as an immigrant child, taking care of my family, being a mediator between those who can speak English, those who can't, like doing all those things and navigating. Like I was reading like important documents, I was like 7 to 8, translating them, all that stuff. And so I've developed a really strong ability to shoulder responsibility, hence being in this field and doing all the work. And I don't say that as a way to boast, but it's a double-edged sword because just because I'm capable of taking on a lot doesn't mean I should. And that might ring true for a lot of you. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And as the saying goes, and I always remember this saying, just because someone carries it well doesn't mean it's heavy. Okay. And I have a lot of clients who They shoulder a lot of responsibility and they take a lot on because they can. But in the meantime, it's literally eroding their sense of self. It's eroding uh, their capacity to just connect with themselves, right? And when we're overwhelmed, it's really hard for us to connect with our hearts, to connect with other people, to hear the things that we need to hear. And so while I've intellectually understood this concept, because I'm a mind person and I have to be very conscious about getting and connecting to my heart, putting it into practice, we all know that ain't easy. Like we know these things, we know they're good for us or whatever the case might be. But putting it into practice, Lord of mercy, that is the challenge. And so slowing down and doing less has been incredibly challenging for me. And I might feel better after taking a break for a while, but gradually I would drift right back. And that could be some of y'all, right? Um, and more stress would build up again, right? We were like, okay, good. We take a break. Like it's almost like you go on vacation, right? You go on vacation and you come back, but the stress is still there. It was gone for that brief moment, right? But it's still there. And it's because we didn't get to the root of it all, right? And so, and then as time passes, I reach the breaking point again. I feel completely overwhelmed, and that becomes the dance. I know it all too well. And so earlier this year, I had started this community called Thrive, which was a powerful community. And I closed it down, which is really difficult for me to do. Um, I had created this powerful community, and it was beginning to thrive, but my energy levels were so low that I could not maintain it. I also stopped taking one-on-one clients, and this was tough because I love working closely with individuals. But again, I was like, I got to prioritize my well-being. I got to figure this out. And I took a significant break from social media. That wasn't too difficult. I did get caught up on TikTok for a while. There are some amazing content creators out there, and I just kind of learned a lot. It's a great place to learn a lot of different things. And I stopped posting and creating content, which I just needed to do, but it impacted my engagement. I lost some followers, but that's how the algorithm works. It is what it is. But whenever I get overwhelmed, you might relate to this as well. I do the Libra disappearing act. Any Libras in the house? Even if you're not a Libra, you might relate to this. If you're a Libra or have Libra friends, you know what this means. We isolate ourselves, then come back for air and be like, huh, what I miss? What's going on? What happened? Right? And thank you for the loved ones in our lives who are patient with this in and out, in and out, as we sort of navigate our energy. And so I spent the last few months just focusing on family, especially spending time with my nieces and nephews they're going through a really tough time right now. I also prioritize other relationships, fitness, just art, drawing, and doodling. Those kind of things reminded me of childhood and brought me a lot of joy. Sometimes we just need to connect back to what's going on, rabbit, peace. Sometimes we just need to reconnect back to our inner child or stuff that we used to do as a kid. And so I spent a lot of that time doing that. I also focused on resting and recovering, which is hard. I'm realizing more and more, resting is not an option. It's a requirement. Sometimes we think like resting, we feel guilty when we rest, but resting is an absolute requirement in your life. Like it just has to be there on a regular basis. And so eventually, after much of reflecting, I was like, oh, how do I serve and still have time for myself and my loved ones without sacrificing one for the other? And now this becomes the journey that I'm on, the practice. And I've learned even from my mentor to hear, um, who would talk about this because she would do a lot of work. What's going on me? And she'd do a lot of client work, but it fueled her. And I just wasn't at that place. And I was like, even when I was talking to the palm reader, even he said at some point he was like that too. And over time, the work started to fuel him. And I was like, oh, okay. But only things will only fuel you if you have the right practices in place. If you're not doing the stuff in between, when it's time to show up, you will not have the energy or the ability to do so. And so this is something that I recognize I'm still sort of working on. And so I find myself just really only seeing clients like Wednesdays and Thursdays, just 2 days out of the week. Um, I also manage a nonprofit blog, so I do a lot of writing, and just been more consistent with dispatching the content to create. And it's creating more space for myself for the remaining weeks. And you'd be surprised how much you are able to accomplish. And not in like a gotta get it done hustle mentality, but it feels good to take things to completion. And so I let go more instead of getting caught up in the zone, because which is something my God actually mentioned to me. She said, when you feel like you're in it and you can do more, stop. Because sometimes when we're in it, we're in the zone, we know we can do more. So we continue to do more until we burn ourselves out. And that becomes the pants, right? And so that's been extremely challenging to be able to step back. It's like, oh, I'm picking up speed, I got my rhythm, and having to stop. And so, yeah, just, doing the usual, resting, trying to do nothing, taking it easy. Doing nothing is hard, but I think we all should, I'm not sure, but we all, it'd be great for us to create more space in our lives to do absolutely nothing. Try doing nothing for a day. See how that feels. It might bring up a lot of anxiety, right? Because we're just like, our thoughts running, and it's like, oh, I could really spend my time doing XYZ instead of just doing nothing. But you're not doing nothing. You're literally resetting yourself. You're grounding yourself. And so I'm gradually rebuilding my energy levels by cutting back on commitments and prioritizing rest. And it's just a slow process for sure. And there's lots of anxiety sometimes associated with it, because it's a new thing for me. It's a new way of being, a new behavior. But I'm learning to sit with that discomfort and trust that things will work out. And sometimes when we're trying out new things and new behaviors, new ways of communicating, new ways of being, there is going to be a lot of discomfort that comes up. And we have to teach ourselves to sit in that discomfort long enough to see it to the other side. Because that's how the change actually materializes, is to sit enough and long enough through that discomfort. And I've learned to just set my own rhythm, and I know that there's no need to rush. I've had clients who really create a lot of anxiety for themselves because they have this internal clock system that says that there's a lot that they need to do before they sort of leave this physical earth. And that's, to me, is just matrix conditioning that tells us that we have to do so much, we have to accomplish so much and do all these things, and that's external things. And there is no rush. There is no time clock. And it's really important for you to, if this is something that you struggle with, to set your own pace. Just set your own pace. Because it's just you and you at the end of the day, right? Because we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. So we can't compare our race to someone else. And so it's really important to be mindful of the matrix conditioning that can creep into a healed space. And I've seen this happen often when people have sort of this powerful awakening. As you can see, it happened to me. And what I mean by awakening is such a loaded word, it's a cliche, but what I mean is just from a powerful awakening, it could be, someone realizing that, oh, this relationship isn't for them. Or they're realizing, oh, this job isn't for them anymore. Or they might discover, oh, I need to, connect to my spiritual path. Those are powerful awakenings and powerful realizations, if that word sounds better. But even after, sometimes with this awakening, old patterns creep back in, and habits creep back in, same as it did for me. And sometimes, for instance, I've met some people who like building conscious businesses, but they're still working long hours. They bring the hustle mentality into the spiritual path, and so that doesn't work over time, and they burn out as well. And so I was like, Francis, you brought the burnout back from whence it came. I brought it back. And I'm realizing life is like a meditation, right? And some people are like, I don't meditate, I don't know how. So just hear me out for a second. In meditation, despite some of the distractions and the thoughts that come up, we're guided to return to our breath. So, similarly in life, when we get off track, we need to find our way back to balance. So, we have to just guide ourselves back to balance. And everyone experiences setbacks a bit differently, but it's really about how quickly we can recover and get back on track. And so, the goal is to minimize the time spent off track. And that's how you know that you're kind of growing through things and that you're progressing, for lack of a better word, and that you're moving forward is the recovery. But anyway, I believe many of us can relate to sort of the struggle. Slowing down can actually feel quite counterintuitive, especially when we're so used to a fast-paced life, right? But however, it's clear from just conversations with myself and my clients that we could all benefit from a slower approach to life. So this is your invitation, uh, and my own invitation to myself: slow down. Everything works out in the end. We just have to trust ourselves, trust the situation long enough to see it through. And we all have internal resources. We're very resourceful beings, surprisingly. We're very resourceful. We have all of these things built within us to be able to do some of these things. And so if we just trust the process and trust ourselves a little bit more and find ways to replenish ourselves, life will feel less hectic, less stressful, and less overwhelmed. And I hope this message resonated with you. And let me know in the comments if you've experienced this and how you've navigated it. By you sharing, it helps other people also. You create the conversations in the comments, and it helps support other people. So thank you for watching. And I'll be doing a bit more videos. I have some ideas since I've had so much time to rest. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely subscribe and join the newsletter Thrive, where I send monthly, you know, um, monthly ways for you to tap back into yourself, reconnect, and move past some of the fears that might be getting in the way of you living a very fulfilling life. So thank you for watching. And I'm on. Take care, y'all.